A yellow flower sits in front of you, bright, simple, and ordinary. Then the human version disappears. The petals darken. The center turns into a target. Lines and patches that were invisible a second ago now point inward, like runway lights painted on a landing pad. That is the strange part of bee vision. A bee is not just seeing a smaller version of our garden. It is looking at a different set of signals, including ultraviolet light that human eyes cannot see. To us, a flower may look plain. To a bee, the same flower can look like it is wearing instructions. And the weirdest part is that the flower did not hide those instructions from everyone by accident. Many flowers are built to be obvious to the animals that matter most to them. Start with the bee's face. A bee has 2 huge compound eyes on the sides of its head, and 3 small simple eyes on top called ocelli. Those big side eyes are the famous ones. Up close, they look like armor made of tiny glass tiles. Each tile is part of a little visual unit called an ommatidium. A worker honeybee has thousands of these units in each compound eye. They do not work like thousands of tiny human eyes, making thousands of perfect pictures. That is the cartoon version. A better way to imagine it is a curved sensor made of many small sampling points, each aimed in a slightly different direction. The result is not super sharp like a hawk's eye or a camera lens. A bee cannot read a tiny sign from across the yard. Fine detail is limited. But it gets something extremely useful instead. A wide view, strong edge detection, and fast information about motion. For a flying insect, that matters. A bee is moving through stems, leaves, spiderwebs, wind, and other insects. It has to keep itself level, avoid collisions, find a blossom, slow down, and land on a surface that may be shaking. Its visual system is not built for admiring scenery. It is built for navigation and decisions. Those 3 little eyes on top help with light, horizon, and orientation, not with detailed flower portraits. They are more like brightness and stability sensors than tiny cameras. So the bee's head is a flight control system with a food-finding system wrapped around it. And if you are enjoying this kind of hidden animal point of view, subscribe to Nature is Weird. We are going to keep taking ordinary things and turning them sideways until they finally make sense. Now, the real trick is color. Human color vision usually uses 3 kinds of cone cells tuned roughly to red, green, and blue. Bees also have 3 main color channels, but theirs are shifted. They are sensitive to ultraviolet, blue, and green. That one swap changes the entire world. Bees can see ultraviolet light, which sits just beyond violet, outside normal human vision. But they do not see red the way we do. A deep red rose that screams for human attention may not scream the same way to a bee. It can appear dark or not very colorful unless it reflects other wavelengths the bee can detect. So when people say bees see colors we cannot, that is true. But it does not mean bees see a magical rainbow added on top of ours. It means their color world is shifted. They lose part of what we call red and gain access to ultraviolet. Now put that bee in a garden. To human eyes, the background is a mess of green leaves with colorful petals scattered through it. To a bee, green is still important because leaves and stems form the background. But flowers can stand out by making color contrasts that hit bee receptors strongly. Some petals reflect ultraviolet, some absorb it. Some do both in different zones. That is where the hidden landing guides appear. Many bee-pollinated flowers have patterns, often called nectar guides. Some are visible to us as stripes, spots, or darker centers. Others only fully appear in ultraviolet. The outer part of a petal may reflect UV strongly, while the center absorbs UV and looks dark to the bee. The result can be a bullseye around the flower's reproductive parts. Imagine approaching a flower from the air. From far away, it is not a perfect detailed painting. It is a patch of color and contrast against leaves. As the bee gets closer, the flower grows in its visual field, and the pattern becomes useful. The center gets darker. The edges become clearer. The target says, in effect, land here. Of course, the flower is not thinking this. There is no little plant brain deciding to draw arrows for bees. The pattern is the result of evolution. Flowers vary. Bees visit some more efficiently than others. If a pattern helps a bee land in the right place, touch the pollen, and find nectar without wasting time, that flower has a better chance of moving its pollen to another flower. The bee gets food. The flower gets reproduction. The signal survives. That is why the phrase landing guide is so good. It sounds almost too designed, but the function is real. A bee does not need to understand the symbol. It just needs to be drawn into the right behavior. The center of the flower is usually where the deal happens. Nectar may be hidden deeper inside. Pollen is carried on anthers. The bee pushes in, brushes against powdery grains, and some stick to its hairy body. When it visits another flower of the same kind, some of that pollen can rub off in the right place. From the plant's point of view, a sloppy visitor is bad. A visitor that lands in a predictable position is better. So patterns, shapes, textures, scents, and nectar placement all work together to make the bee move like a tiny delivery system. This is why a pollen close-up looks so different from the gentle yellow dust we imagine. Pollen grains can be spiky, sticky, sculpted, or clumped. They are not just food for the bee. They are also the plant's reproductive cells packaged for transport. And bees are not just blindly vacuuming flowers. They learn. Experiments have shown that bees can learn to associate colors with rewards like nectar or pollen. A bee that finds a profitable flower type can keep returning to similar flowers. This is a huge advantage. It saves time. It also helps plants, because a bee that keeps visiting the same species is more likely to move pollen where it actually works. So the bee's visual world is not only weird, it is practical. Picture a bee flying through a meadow. The scene is not a crisp human postcard. It is a moving field of contrasts. Leaves slide past. Stems expand rapidly as the bee approaches them. A flower patch grows larger. The bee adjusts its path using motion across its compound eyes. That motion information is one of the underrated powers of compound eyes. They are very good at noticing change across the visual field. This helps a bee steer through clutter and judge how fast the world is sweeping past. When it comes into land, the image of the flower expands. The bee slows down. Legs reach. The target that looked like a color patch becomes a textured surface. The landing itself is a sensory pileup. Vision guides the approach. Smell confirms the flower. Touch tells the bee where it is. The feet and antenna explore. The bee may feel petal texture, taste the surface, and search for nectar. UV marks may have brought it in, but the final decision uses more than one sense. This is where many bee vision images online can mislead people. When you see a flower photo labeled "How Bees See," it is usually a false color translation. Cameras and editors take ultraviolet information and convert it into colors humans can see. That is useful because otherwise we would just be staring at invisible data. But it is not a literal screenshot from a bee's brain. A bee probably does not see a neon fantasy garden exactly like the edited image. It has different receptors, different eye optics, different brain processing, and lower detail than we are used to. The image is a map for us, not a memory from the bee. But the invisible patterns themselves are real. The sunflower-like bullseye, the dark UV center, the pale UV-reflecting petal edge, the markings that pull attention toward the nectar and pollen. Those are not internet decoration. They are part of the communication system between flowering plants and pollinating animals. There is another hidden signal above the flowers too. Bees can use patterns of polarized light in the sky for navigation. Sunlight scatters in the atmosphere and creates a polarization pattern that humans normally do not notice. Specialized parts of insect eyes can detect this, helping bees keep a compass direction even when the sun is not plainly visible. That does not mean every moment of bee life is a glowing compass hallucination. It means the bee has access to directional information we usually miss. The sky is not just blue. It can be a navigation grid. Now bring all of this back to the first flower. To us, a blossom is often judged by beauty. Big petals, nice colors, a pleasing shape. We bred garden flowers for our eyes, so some of them are spectacular to humans. But wildflowers were not auditioning for humans. Long before anyone planted a garden bed, flowers were under pressure to be found, handled, and revisited by insects. Their colors are not just decoration. Their centers are not just pretty. Their patterns can be instructions aimed at eyes with ultraviolet receptors, fast motion detection, and a very different idea of contrast. That is the reframe. A flower is not one object with one appearance. It is several appearances at once, depending on who is looking. To a human, it may be a yellow circle. To a bee, it may be a dark-centered target. To another pollinator, it may be something else again, because butterflies, birds, flies, and beetles do not all share the same visual world. The garden is not silent. It is broadcasting. We just do not have the right eyes to read most of the messages. So the next time you see a bee drop onto a flower as if it knew exactly where to go, it is not magic, and it is not random. The bee is following a world of edges, motion, color contrasts, smells, and ultraviolet signs that were never meant for you. The ordinary flower was never ordinary. You were just seeing the human version. If you want another hidden sensory world explained, drop it in the comments. What should Nature is Weird look through next?